Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Redefining Hustle, Pursuing Success as a Christian Woman. Thanks for joining us at a little bit of a different time than our live stream. And that's because I have a very special guest this week. So, this is part of our series called Expand Your Expertise. And if you listened to the last episode, you know that we're talking about a number of ways to expand your expertise, whether that's starting a podcast or being a podcast guest or creating a community or creating a course or membership. And what all of those things have in common, the foundational piece that all of those things have is confidence. And so I have my confident communicator expert and good friend, Karen Laos, here today. She's going to be talking to us about why that confidence is so important as you seek to expand your expertise. And what does it look like to show up in your confidence and ask for what you want in a way that creates a win-win and a graceful environment for everyone. So, Karen, welcome to the show. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Erin. Well, I remember when I was 6 years old and my dad gave me a few dollars at a flea market and he said, go have fun, but never pay full price. And honestly, that defining moment has really shaped how I've continued to be successful in my career, to ask for what I want and be really comfortable with that. But on the other hand, what's important to share, and this is where a lot of my insecurity stemmed from, is growing up with a very traditional home where my mom modeled that a woman didn't have a voice unless a man told her that he did. And having to navigate that throughout my life, also trying to please my dad most of my life, I really was trying to do that. And so it was this feeling of not being good enough. So my heart is for the woman who is holding back from being her true, authentic self, free to be who she truly is, and not, well, that's my goal, is to not have that person, like I was for too long, being held back by a prison truly of our own making.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit more of my heart and a little more personal side, but it has shaped my business. And on the business component, I started in HR, became a corporate trainer, and then for almost 25 plus years now, I think it's hard to count anymore, I have specialized in communication, confident communication, specifically in executive presence and how you carry yourself through that, as well as the message and the story and being memorable and getting to the point quickly. So that's a little bit of the juxtaposition of holding both of those.
I love that, Karen, because I think a lot of women who are now stepping, have been in business for some time, maybe they've relied on the gifts, the talents, the skills that they've always had, but now they've hit this place in their business where perhaps they want to expand their audience. Perhaps they want to take what they've always done and create new offers or whatever that is. And what's funny is sometimes when we operate in our own box, it's scary to step out. And where do you see women in particular get stuck when it comes to the confidence in business, in stepping into that new role or that new service offering or whatever? What holds us back?
Yeah, a big part of it, of course, is the standard imposter syndrome, but it all stems from doubting our own abilities. Thinking that, and there's so much societal pressure to feel like you have to be it all, do it all. I mean, you're a classic example of how you're helping women to not be doing the hustle the way that society tells us we have to, and being so busy all the time. I mean, it all comes together to create this almost impossible demand of how we're supposed to be in the world.
Right.
So it's safer, frankly, to hold back. And I did that for a long time. I was too afraid what other people thought. So the people pleasing is such a big one as well.
Yeah.
And I will say, though, through lots of personal growth work, years of therapy, lots of delving into what is the problem that I have in certain scenarios where I wasn't able to fully express who I truly was. When I got free from that, it was so empowering. And I thought, everybody can do this. This is a skill that anybody can learn. Anybody listening to this, you can learn this. So I can start with an exercise, so we're not talking
That
too
would be
much
great. Yeah,
theory.
I'd love that.
But one of my favorites is what I call the Broadway musical, and this is to
You're
pick.
speaking to my heart right now.
Well, get ready. Anybody wants to sing? Here we are. So you take the strongest message of doubt that you have, and for many women, it's I'm not enough. And instead of even just taking a moment here, even when I say that out loud, it sounds heavy. But if I sing it like a Broadway musical, I'm not good enough, suddenly it changes the meaning. So, the wonderful thing about this is that it's backed in neuroscience, meaning when you sing it like that, or you even say it in a different voice that might be a funny voice, then you're laughing. Your neural pathways are
Mhm.
shifted. So, as a result of that, it takes the power away of that same exact message. So, that's one that anybody can do immediately.
Oh, I love that one, Karen. It's funny when I feel foggy, I will find myself sort of singing through whatever it is. And I love how you take that, which seems so silly, but it's funny how it sort of breaks the chain, if you will, in that moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, I
I
love it.
know. Well, and another one of my favorites is called the fear script. And this is where you take that message of fear or doubt, you write it down. This is a great journaling exercise. I've also done it with people where they record themselves to themselves on video
Mm.
and they talk back to each other. So basically, what happens is you write that message of doubt, and that's considered the fear or the doubt. You can put that as the script. And then what would your highest version of yourself say back to that? Or basically, what would you say back to that?
Mm.
I mean, what I find fascinating about this exercise is that I've never had anybody that said that they're at a loss of what to say back to the fear. We know what to say. Again, this stuff is not as if it's what should I say? Not that it's not hard, but it's not that it's not simple. In other words, it's not complicated,
Right.
but it's the execution.
Yeah.
And I have found that when people do that exercise, it opens up this whole dialogue where you start
Mm.
realizing, "Oh my gosh, fear, that's not even relevant.
Right.
That doesn't even make logical sense."
Yeah.
And when you start even thinking about making a list of your accomplishments, for example, that can be a wonderful thing to do too, to have right in front of you
Mm.
and see, there's no way I'm an imposter. I have all of these skills.
That's right.
And even if you said, "Oh, well, I still need more for this role," or whatever, you can still say, "But look at my character traits."
Mm.
Too many
That's right.
people look at just their tactical skills, and yet we have to remember that there's the tactical and then there's the character traits that are all connected to why we do business with certain people and that know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah, one of the things that while you were talking about that fear script that came up for me is how often we've been in a conversation with a friend who's speaking down to themselves, and we so quickly are able to respond to that to lift them up. Like,
Mhm.
how don't say that about yourself. Think about it this way, or I've seen you do this. And yet we're so hard on ourselves. And that exercise seems to put us in the role, right? Because it's a script of
Mhm.
having that conversation sort of with our inner friend, if you will,
Right.
again to break those chains. You said
Mhm.
something earlier, Karen, that I just wanted to bring forward, and it kind of relates to what I talked to my guest about in episode 219. And she was making a change that God told her to do to move on from one company to a different company. And what held her back for a long time was the people pleasing. And what will these people think of me? Or what will those people think of me? And
Yeah.
to me, tying that together with what you just said, so many times I'll say to my clients, do you have a list of all of the ways that God has delivered you? Right?
Mhm.
All of the things that God has had a breakthrough, or all of the ways that you've seen God show up. And similar to what you said, right? Having that in front of you, having your accomplishments in front of you, not so they define you, but so they remind you of who He made you to be, and even the challenges that you've overcome, so that you have that confidence when you think, why would I create a course? Who would buy a course from me? Well, really? Because you've been teaching that, right? In live sessions or what have you. So I love, love, love that. Karen, you created something called the Confidence Cocktail. And I have been so fortunate to have been part of a group coaching that you and I are part of. So I've seen you sort of work through it. And I'm so excited for you to share that with our audience and walk them through what that is. And by the way, I'm sure, Karen, that you have a download or something like that. So we can put that in the show notes, that people can have sort of a visual of it. But tell us about this confidence cocktail.
Yeah, well, the premise, of course, first of all, it's my signature framework that I finally put into
Yay!
something, realizing how important that is. It's work I've been doing for years, but I love that there's some flair to it because I like to think of myself as having a little flair, having a fun personality. And the goal is to look at what are the ingredients of a confidence cocktail that would be the perfect recipe for you. So
Mm,
whoever is listening, there's obviously there's ingredients that bring us confidence, and yet sometimes you might not need one. Maybe you need a dash of this or a shot of that or whatever it might be to make it perfect for you. So the first thing is there are typically three things that when we are confident, people experience us as in the world itself. So those are three C's. Those are credibility, clarity, and connection. So we have connection with our audience or the person we're talking to. That's where the relationship building comes in. We have this credibility that showcases our expertise where people realize, oh, she's a credible expert. And then there's, of course, the clarity where people feel like our message is clear and they're not confused around us. And I will say a quick side note about how hard it is for most of us to stop rambling. And I will say I'm a recovering rambler myself. So I have to stop and pause here for a moment because one of the things related to clarity is how to stop rambling and get to the point. And my tip for that is to notice that you're doing it in the first place, stop, pause, and say out loud, my point is this.
mm,
That will help you to refocus, and it will also help your audience or listeners or whoever is listening to your message know, oh, she has a point if they were also getting lost. So that's one tip related to clarity. But if you've got these three C's, again, connection, credibility, and clarity, that's really part of the confident cocktail itself. That's
mm,
my promise to you when working with me. That is the
mm,
result. So, how we get there is through these other various ingredients. So, things like brand identity. Who are you and how do you want people to experience you? There's also thinking on your feet. That's a big one for a lot of
mm,
people. How do you deal with unexpected scenarios like Q&A or difficult people? There's also celebration. That's a huge thing that I have seen related to building confidence because the more kind of like what we've already been talking about,
mhm,
when you acknowledge those accomplishments, it is a beautiful thing to have a celebration practice
right.
regularly, for sure. And then one of them, of course, is the message itself in general. How do you have a message that's clear? How do you tell stories in a way that
Mm,
grabs people's attention? And then mindset is another big one. There's technically six ingredients. So I know it's a little hard to see to imagine it without the visual, but just to be really tightened up here, and they're not in any particular order.
mhm,
So I want to make sure that's clear too. But one is brand identity, which we've obviously said already. One is mindset, one is celebration, one is presence, how you come across,
mhm,
the thinking on your feet, and then the message itself.
mm,
So we look at these, and what I have when I work with my clients, I have everybody rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 of how strong do you think you are in each of those categories. And then determining, okay, as we work together, how are you progressing? And
mm.
that's a really great way to, first of all, what I find interesting is what people rate themselves at,
Yeah.
and then what I would say. So we start where, well, of course, it's got to start with the pain or the problem that the
Mhm,
person is having. But sometimes people don't realize, like, they're so fixated. Like, I'm just thinking about one of my clients, as so much of what I do is recording people and then watching it back. And one of them was so fixated on some tick that she noticed she was doing with her eyebrow, like she was
mm,
erasing it or something. And it was barely noticeable, but it was very obvious.
Right.
Her voice was tentative and she had a ton of filler words. So I
Mm,
told her, look, if I really look at that, I could probably see it, but you've got much bigger fish to fry here.
right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm just gonna I have to cough, so keep talking.
Okay, so I'll keep talking because the most important ingredient is the lime on the side, and that is courage. Because we have got to have courage to be
Mm,
able to actually put this to action. And everything that I do, and so the confidence cocktail is the framework, but everything that I do is under the umbrella of a formula, which is communication strategies that I will offer you, plus you taking action equals confidence.
right.
So we've got to take the confidence. But what I have found a lot of people say is, oh, you gave me the confidence.
Mm,
Or I mean, you gave me the tips or the tactics, the strategies, if you will. And then that helped me to know what to say, how to say it, and then I had more confidence. But it requires action. It's like anything that we do.
yeah, yeah. What I love, Karen, is there's so much that I love about what you do. But as we talk about expanding our expertise, sometimes as you were referring to that client and her noticing that tick, like you said, which was barely noticeable, we get so laser focused on the overthinking or the perfection or the people pleasing or, or. And
Yeah.
we need someone from the outside perspective to help us see those pieces and that it's this even the exercises that you've given us here, to be able to sort of snap ourselves out of that and remember what we're coming to the table with, what
Hmm.
we have to offer. Remember that somebody somewhere has bought something from us previously. And I
Hmm.
love that you brought up the character piece too, because sometimes people do choose to work with you. I've had clients who've chosen to work with me in ways, and I thought that it really isn't my expertise, but they just connected with me in such a way and trusted me that know, like, and trust. So it's showing up from a confident place to be able to expand your expertise in the ways that best serve your clients. Are there ways, Karen, that we overstep the confidence line and become, I don't know, maybe like a little cocky, cockier than we should be? I don't know. That's what I want to know.
It's possible. For most people that are even asking that question, we won't even broach that. But I do think that what happens, and this has happened to me a lot, I have always been overconfident in my abilities. Like, I am not that woman that says, oh, I need to have 10 out of 10. I'm the one, if I have 3 out of 10, I'll go,
Mhm.
I'm going to apply.
Right.
So, I will say there have been times in my life where I have gotten too comfortable
Mm.
or thought, "Oh, I've got this." And then inevitably something happens. I mean, this happened very recently for me, and I was realizing, one of the beautiful things that you did for us before this was to pray, and specifically pray about the tech.
Mm.
I wish that I had done that last week.
I have learned that lesson.
Because I came into something, I mean, frankly, the organizers they trusted me and just said, oh, it was sort of they were last minute, I was last minute. And then I realized I was too overconfident related to
Mm.
this. I should have
Mm.
spent more time preparing. I should have thought about the different scenarios. So that's an immediate example that comes to mind in my life.
Yeah.
Now, if we think about, for example, overdoing it related to our gestures or our voice, like so many women generally don't project well. But this
Mm.
is why you've got to record yourself, because
Right.
I remember my husband and I were at a restaurant the other day, and there was this woman talking so loud at the table. And I thought, oh, Chris actually leaned to me and he goes, well, she doesn't have a problem projecting her voice. So sometimes this is where we can come across, and this is where I feel like we have to toe this line here, because
Mhm.
that whole phrase, too much, like she's too much.
Mm.
There's so much societal backlash off of that comment. And I never want somebody to feel like they're too much.
Right.
And when they're just being themselves. So this is why I come back to record yourself,
Mm,
see how you come across, or at least get feedback from someone else and ask, does my voice come across as too loud? And are my gestures too much? And it's not about your personality, it's about your behaviors. How are you coming across with those behaviors, for lack of a better word? Because if somebody is too loud or has too many gestures or over leans in, then that will be distracting.
mm,
So it's finding the sweet spot. And this is the line that all of us, in particular women, have to toe all the time. It's that tightrope of, I don't want to come across as too strong from a credibility, or, well, again, this is, I'm always watching my words with this one, but being too competent, too strong with all of the, those qualities, but then you don't want to be too soft and nurturing and
sure.
warm. Like, you've got to find the balance of warmth and competence,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And there's so many, it's just, yeah, there's so much that we could expand on with this. Cause I hear, a lot of women will say, well, I'm always told to smile. And I think, men don't get that feedback. And that might be true, generally speaking, but I'll tell you, if I work with men that don't have a smile, I'm going to tell them to smile. So to me, it's definitely neutral, but it's tough, and everything could trigger somebody. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing that we've got to remember too. And
Yeah.
if you're triggered, the thing I would say to ask is it really, is this becoming personal now? Or
Mm,
is it there's some reason that I'm triggered, but there's actually truth in this?
yeah.
And maybe that's why
Absolutely.
I'm triggered, but it's something to look at.
Right. Right. Oh, Karen, this has been so good. One of the reasons that I wanted to start our series with you as the expert on confidence is because I think so many times as women, we have a tunnel vision of what we think that we're good at doing and that we could offer, or we're looking left and right, which the Bible tells us not to do, and thinking, "Oh, well, I should be doing that, or I should be doing that, or I could never do that." And so all of those pieces really play into having that lack of confidence. And confidence to me is so important if we're going to expand our expertise or serve a new audience or go deeper in our audience, because you know what, that can be scary too when you start to niche down. And I know, we've been talking a little bit about that among, some of our group in the group coaching, that well, I want to serve this audience. And so my question for you is, as you have really honed the audience that you serve, have you found your own confidence shaken at any point as you started to think about narrowing that audience to those, high level executive women that that you can serve?
Oh, for sure. It's the fear of, oh my gosh, what if then I'm not serving these other people? And the truth is, if I really get down to it, it's, what if I don't not going to have enough business? What if those people, what if I now am excluding these? And I come back to something years ago when I was experimenting with different lines at networking events, and way back in the day, when it was like the Rotary Club or whatever, Chamber of Commerce. And I remember vividly the response that I would get when I tested out different lines, and specifically the difference when I started saying, I work with women over 40 who are stressed and depleted. Immediately people go, what? What? Tell me more. And then I would have men say, do you work with men too? So I think that we've got to trust that the scarcity principle is, well, number one, I think the most important thing is, who do you really want to serve? Who has God called you to serve? What gives you the most passion and joy? And where can you fit your expertise in the best place? Like, to me, that's the bottom line. But then there's that other component that we can't deny in society, that there is that rule of scarcity, that you will be more desirable when you are more narrowed down. And I think about the power of this new business group that I'm in called the Poetics. It is so fascinating, the power that, like, I have never quite seen it described in such a way of how powerful having a framework is related to growing your business. And even thinking about these people that are so niched down, like Mel Robbins and her 5 second rule. I mean, it's one thing, the 5 second rule. These different people that have their one thing, or Simon Sinek, who made his, however many millions he's making on Start With Why. And that wasn't a new concept, but he made it in a way that, from a marketing perspective, and I love him
Yeah.
and he's great, but it's such a good reminder that if we can start with an audience and then a thing that we do as the main thing, it doesn't mean you can't do the other things, but
That's
it's,
right.
what is your main thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that is so good. And from my perspective, as I see women who want to expand, maybe they've been offering one-on-one coaching, or maybe they've been group coaching and now they want to offer a course or whatever that is. Who is that audience? Who is that one person that you're speaking to? And what is that framework that you're walking them through? I think the scarcity piece is it's real, and we also, of course, have to remember, and you said this, right? Who has God called you to serve? What gifts and talents and skills has he given you for your mission in the marketplace? Because every one of you has a mission in the marketplace, right? If you're listening to this podcast, I know that you're a high achieving believer and that you want to glorify God in your business, but you've probably been relying on yourself for a very long time and you've had some success with that, but you don't want to keep doing it that way. And we have to trust that God is preparing and positioning us in every season for those that he's given us to serve. And if we can get really clear on that and be confident, even beyond the confidence in ourselves, but confident that, like, God can redeem anything. But
Mm-hmm.
if you know that he's calling you forward to expand and expand your expertise and offer something new, or, hone that audience even further, that he's not doing that at your detriment ever, 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 ever.
Right.
Oh, Karen, this is so good. Before we finish up, I have two questions. One, how has faith played a role in your business to this point, and where you see your business going?
Well, it's everything, because it's the foundation of how I operate in life. And so it's something yeah, to me, it's just part of who I am. So it's all integrated.
Love that.
And I will say that probably, I don't think it's going to change necessarily. I will also say that I'm not explicit about my faith in the world, and that's an intentional choice,
Yeah,
because I want people to feel just that. I don't want any barriers around, oh, well, she's this. And there's so many
sure.
labels. Sadly, there's so many labels around Christianity. I want people to feel seen and heard and
Yeah,
loved around me. And
yeah,
that's my number one goal. And it's not like I deny it. It's certainly not
sure.
at all. But I would say, so just, I wanted to share that two things, that it's the
Yeah,
foundation. Obviously, you and I are also in a Christian business group together, but it's also I'm doing my best to, well, that's, I don't, that's not even true. I want to have a stronger faith practice, specifically on my own, praying every day, even if it's 5 minutes. And I am not consistent at that. So I feel like I need to be very transparent about that. But that is where my heart is, that
yeah,
having that. And I do pray about things, of course, with my clients, and I love to pray with clients. That is, to me, is really fun. I'm a very in the moment person. So I'm one of those people like, hey, let's pray, or I'm going to pray for you. Or sometimes I will leave friends voice memos and pray for them. So, and I'll do that for clients sometimes too. But that's the way I would say that it's integrated. And
yeah.
yet I feel like I yearn to
Mhm.
have more. I mean, I guess that's just in general, continuing to want to surrender
Yes.
and And it's amazing how challenging self-discipline can be.
Yes, that is so true. I love, Karen, that you vulnerably shared that this is an area that you want to go deeper and that you want to be more disciplined in. And I love that you shared that, this is not where God has not called every single one of his ambitious daughters in business to strictly serve his people, or he hasn't strictly called some of us to only work with believers. I know that that's true for me, but so many are walking out a mission in the marketplace that extends far beyond, right, that specific audience, and that's okay,
Mhm.
because there are people who need what you have. And he has positioned you and prepared you where you are because he knows that the world needs what you have. And we get to reflect him, and we don't always have to be forward in our faith to reflect him in the marketplace. Because remember, listeners, you may be the only experience of Jesus that somebody gets, and they
Yeah.
cross paths with you, and they sense a calm and a peace about you, that character, like you were talking about earlier, Karen, that draws them in and makes them want to work with you. So you don't have to only be serving a faith audience. So I wanted to be clear on that, and I'm so glad that you shared that, Karen. So tell us, where can we find you? How do people get in touch with you? How do they learn about your framework and all the things?
Yes. Well, you can reach me at KarenLaos.com. That is my first and last name, KarenLaos.com. I have, for those of you that are wondering, gosh, is there anything that I'm saying in my vocabulary, the vocabulary that might be getting in my way related to my credibility? I have a thing on my website, a PDF called 9 Words to Avoid and What to Say Instead. So feel free to download that. And I'm also on Instagram a lot. I love to post short reels. And I have a book called Trust Your Own Voice, as well as a podcast called Ignite Your Podcast.
I love it, Karen. Thank you for being my guest and talking about confidence and helping us with some fun exercises around that. So, everyone, listen, go follow Karen, go connect with her. I love you so much, Karen. I'm so grateful to have you as my friend and to have you as my confidence coach in my ear anytime that I'm having one of those moments. So, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you too, Erin. I love you too.
All right, guys, until next time, I pray for and encourage you to tune out the world, tune into God's truth, and turn up focus as you build your thriving kingdom business. And I'll see you on the next episode.